Governor Abbott, with my support and every other Republican support in the state, said we're there to help you. Texas did not take a back step.
Texas backed down earlier tonight and reopened the crossings.
I want to ask you if you're familiar with Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution.
I don't memorize everything, so read.
That's fine. I'm not asking you if you believe in independence right now or should we leave. What I'm asking you is whose decision is it? Is it we the people or is it the legislature?
You've asked me a question I've not been asked. You've asked me a question I've not researched. And so I will follow back. And
you have to research it?
Yeah,
I just read the Texas Constitution.
Ma'am, I understand. But there will be a legal opinion on that, and I don't know what that legal opinion is, and I would want to go to the Attorney General and find out what that really says and really means and what the intent is. Reading me something for the first time that I have not looked at, and you're asking me a question, and I'm happy to give you an answer and follow up and give you the answer.
In power, whether red or blue, they could not care less about Texas, me and you. They created this give me country that don't value hard work. For a Texan to survive, all we need are some seeds and dirt. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone. We believe in family and we value our community. Gladly lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. And we don't believe that government should provide for all of society's needs. No, it's the pride of a Texan to give to others voluntarily. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country before it's long gone. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country before it's long gone. They like our tax dollars and they love our natural resources. They don't want to see us driving trucks, they'd rather see us riding horses. And now they want to ban our guns, you know, especially the ones that look scary. But may I remind you of the Gonzales Cannon and the Alamo heroes we buried. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country before it's long gone. Texan arise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country before it's long gone. This last verse is straight from the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 and 2. Look it up. Texas is an independent state, yet presently we suffer. We no longer possess the right to locally self-govern. And now it's time as a people in which all political power is inherent. And in such manner we find expedient, we reform or abolish our government. I said, Texas in a rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone. Texas in a rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before it's long gone.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's me, Daniel Miller, and it is time for a late night coffee talk where we talk about news of the day, talk about TEXIT, we talk about the TNM, and I take your questions and respond to your comments live during this broadcast. And I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. As you can see, I am not in my normal confines, right, at the Off-White House in my little office there. I am on the road, and if you look back here, you'll understand why. I am on about a 10-day campaign swing. We're going to be hitting a lot of different events. Last night, as a matter of fact, I was up in Sherman, Texas, at a meeting of the Grayson County Conservatives, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a moment, and talk about some of the dates that are coming up. But before we get started, I want to remind you kind of what we do every week, right? I get my cup of coffee, I decompress, and this has been going on for quite some time now. Golly, man, I don't know if we're quite a year in or not. We'll have to go back and do a little digging and figure that out. But that being said, if you have been here before, you know the drill. But if you have not, I would encourage you, if you're viewing us on YouTube, be sure that you like this video, that you subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we go live. And of course, we've got chat live over there on YouTube right now, and we'll be taking your questions from there. And Super Chat is active, so if you'd like to make a contribution to the TNM, because this is a TNM, broadcast. Hang on, let me show you. There's the proof. It's on the screen right there, right? But, we're doing this in conjunction with TNM. So all the contributions come in via Super Chat, go right to the TNM and support our efforts to secure the political, cultural, and economic independence of Texas and help us reach more Texans with things like this live stream. And I'm proud to do it, even through the campaign, right? I will tell you, let me just go ahead and say this. I will tell you that political, insiders have suggested that I stop doing this while I'm campaigning. And you know what I told them? Never mind. Not going to listen, because this is about y'all. This is about me having an opportunity to discuss these issues and be accessible to you. And I don't know what it is about these establishment types that just they don't want candidates or elected officials to be accessible to the people. But isn't that really the problem? Isn't that why we're here in the first place? So anyway, YouTube. So if you're on the TNM's YouTube channel, Super Chats live, Chats live, and of course, all the chats aggregate over here in this one column. Kara is working the chat tonight, so she's going to be feeding me your questions, and I will get to them as I can. If you're watching on any of the Facebook outlets that we're streaming on, make sure you do those Facebook things. Like the video, share the video, make a comment, help us beat the algorithm. And of course, we're on the TNM's Facebook page. We're on my Facebook page. We're on all the other connected ones, on several groups that we have over there. As many as we can possibly broadcast to. So, just do the Facebook things. And then, of course, if you're watching via Twitter Live, you know what to do. Make your comments, retweet. Excuse me. I'm joking over here, man. It's sinuses and allergies. It's terrible. But go ahead, do the retweets. Hit us with the normal hashtags, hashtag DTNM, hashtag TEXIT, hashtag Texas First. We'll be watching all of those. And of course, again, I think all of that aggregates in the chat. And of course, hello, welcome to our Twitch viewers. I appreciate you tuning in on Twitch, whether you're watching live or on the replay. Thank you so much. And, we're still going to get that pesky Instagram up at some point. We're going to get that working right. All right, so let's tear into this, right? We've got there's a lot to talk about, a lot that's happened over the last week. Whether it's the governor's town hall that we had, the virtual town hall, or the Ted Cruz video that mysteriously, after actually happening about a month ago, is starting to make the rounds and has driven a ton of traffic and a ton of new supporters of the TNM. Or the campaigns that are in full swing, whether it's my campaign or the campaigns of other TNM candidates. I think we can officially say that the starter pistol has been fired and people are campaigning right now. So look, we'll get to all that. But first, before we get to that, and of course, your questions afterwards, before we get to that, let me just kind of elaborate on a little of what I was talking about right after I was talking about our YouTube channel. It's amazing. Last night, last night when I was in Sherman up there in Grayson County with the Grayson County Conservatives, let me first and foremost thank all of those people, especially Brian and Joy, for just being such gracious hosts. Got to break bread with them today and have lunch. They have been phenomenal friends, and they have been super friendly to us. As a matter of fact, the last time I was up here, they were actually meeting in Howe, and I went and spoke. And when we left, I actually got a bolt in one of my tires, and go open up the car, get ready to fix the flat. There, Nate and I are pulled off at a convenience store, and there's no jack in the car, right? So, got in touch with Dan and Daphne. Dan and Daphne, if you guys don't know them, Daniel and Daphne Armour, got in touch with them. They got in touch with Brian and Joy, and man, they made a big long trip back out. Anyway, got us on the donut, got us on the road, and I've still got it. I literally kept that bolt in a Ziploc bag that I have at the house, just as a reminder of just how wonderful so many people can be in helping us get the message of Texas independence out. No matter what you think about how people contribute to the effort, everything helps. And that day, they were just so kind, went out of their way to help us out, and so I consider them just fantastic friends. And so last night was pretty amazing. We had an event over at 903 Brewers. They're in Sherman, which is a great facility. Man, that place had such a great vibe. And it was packed with people who were excited about not just about my lieutenant governor candidacy, but about TEXIT. And what I told everyone there was that I kind of clued them in on all the things that have happened, the things that got me to announce that I was running for lieutenant governor, but really all the things that have happened since, and how these political wonks are coming out of the woodwork, and they're telling me what I should wear and shouldn't wear, how I should, dress and shouldn't dress, things I should say and shouldn't say. And I had to tell the entire crowd that I'm basically telling those guys to pound sand, right? The consultant class here in Texas, right? These big PACs, these consultants, these guys that are just part of that political machinery. They've never seen anything like this, right? And if you're going to tell Daniel Miller not to talk about TEXIT, you're nuts, right? We're going to talk about it. And, yes, we're going to talk about other things that concern Texans, like securing the border and abolishing the property tax and making parents the chief stakeholders in their children's education. All of these issues we're going to talk about because they're Texas issues, but you cannot talk about Texas issues without talking about the nexus of those issues with our relationship related to the federal government. And look, after 25 years of talking about Texas, I'm not going to have a muzzle slapped over my mouth by a bunch of people who don't understand this issue, right? They don't know how to deal with what is effectively a popular uprising among the voters, right? Voters are completely discontent with politics as usual, right? So that's why we're going no PACs, no consultants, none of these things. Our campaigns are relying, just like we always have for all these years, they're relying on people just like you to pitch in, to chip in and financially support, whether it's $1 or $5 or $10, whatever you can offer, or, given your sweat equity, right? We've got the TNM has volunteers all across the state that out of their own pocket, their own time and their own dime, as we say, go out there and help us spread the message of Texas independence. And they've never seen anything like this. When your major politicians are paying people to block walk for them, right? They're finding some college intern or somebody, and they're having to pay them money to go knock doors, not out of passion, but for a paycheck. On our side, where we believe that all political power is inherent in the people, we're putting our faith and our bet on the people of Texas, and they don't get it, right? So they're like, oh, Daniel, you need to dress like this, or Daniel, you can't possibly win office with facial hair. I mean, can you believe it? I mean, the stuff they are saying, and it's like, you know what, guys, I don't have time for you. And last night was absolute proof positive that we're right about this, because I did the thing. I started off the meeting, and I did the thing that I've done at the beginning of so many meetings over the years, and asked the question that I was told that I shouldn't ask. Literally, I was told not to use this, not to ask this question at these meetings. And I asked the question, who here is ready for TEXIT? And that room exploded. The packed house exploded. And yeah, we had great discussions about all of these other issues and about our plans to secure the border, what we want to do to make that happen this side of TEXIT, and how we want to abolish that immoral property tax and so many of these things. But the excitement there was people that wanted to see TEXIT, and these were not all TNM people, right? I mean, I know that's part of some of the criticism that we're going to get, but that's just people speaking from ignorance. These were people that were from the community. Some drove in because they wanted to hear, and they were excited about the potential of Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation. They were excited. Then they were excited about the prospects of what an independent Texas could do, and having leadership in Texas that will stand as a firewall between the onslaught from Washington, D.C. and the people of Texas, to have real, true servant leadership in Austin that don't think that the people of Texas are too stupid to make their own decisions, right? That's what they wanted to hear. And that's what happened. We had that conversation straight from the heart. I don't prepare notes. I get up, I speak what's on my mind, what's in my heart. And that's why sometimes it'll be the same, but there's always something different. And last night was pretty doggone special. The excitement in that room, I believe, was an indicator of the mood of the people of Texas. They are ready to wipe the slate clean from the state house to the schoolhouse, and they're ready to see some real, true pro-Texas leadership that, when given a choice between serving the people of Texas or serving their masters in the donor class or in Washington, D.C., they will pick the people of Texas, right? That's what they want. And that's what we're going to give them. So it was a phenomenal evening. Again, I can't thank those folks enough. And, it was the kickoff for a 10-day swing. I'm going to be on the road. I will not, I'm going to be on the road for 10 solid days. Tonight I'm in Waco, and I will be speaking in Waco tomorrow night. Then it's off to, golly, man, I don't know. You can go to danielomiller.com/events. Let me do this while I'm here. Let me flash that address on the screen. There it is. You can go to that web address, go to events, and you'll see everywhere I'm going to be over the next 10 days. And just before I left, we added a date on the 18th. I'm going to be speaking at Project Fort Worth in Fort Worth on the 18th. And I believe there's some other things that are getting added too. So look, I'm out here not because I just love to sleep at hotels or stare through a windshield for many hours at a time, but I'm out here doing this for you, just like we've always done in the TNM. It's always been about serving the people of Texas, and I'm happy to do it. Yeah, it's long, it's a bit grueling, but this is for everyone. Look, we've got to go win this thing. We've got to go restore the people back to their rightful place as the masters of their government. And that doesn't get done just sitting at the house. What this requires of us right now is to get out and work. And for me, it means that I've got to go out there and travel and do coffee talk in a place that is not my house or my office. So, and good news, I didn't forget the coffee this time on Coffee Talk. Thank you, Daphne, for making another pot. I appreciate that. So let's get down to some more news of the day. So go check out the events, and beyond that, hey, go look at the TNM's website. Right? Let me throw that caption up there too. If you go to tnm.me, and I have that on here somewhere. Here's petition. Go to the petition page. Right, the Texas petition's still going on. We're in those final days. We need everybody to get in there and put in their A game, 100% effort, and make it out to an event. And if you go to the events page, if you go to tnm.me/petition, there's a list of petition signing events, which hint, all of our events are petition signing events right now, and as they will be through the duration of the petition campaign. But go there, find a list of events. There are tons of events going on the calendar right now, whether it's actual petition signing events or TNM local meetups or whatever. Go get plugged in. And if there's nothing going on for you locally, I'm going to encourage you to become a local coordinator, right? Become a local leader. Step up, be that leader that people in your area need, in your town, and help us organize the people of your town for the TNM, and let's get this job done. Okay. So moving right along. So the other big thing, and I don't have any wonderful video clips about this, but it was my honor this week to host the virtual town hall, stepping right back into my role here in the TNM. I balance. I'm a multitasker, but it was this was set up before I ever considered running for lieutenant governor, but I was proud and honored to moderate a virtual town hall hosted by the TNM, featuring 3 of the candidates for the Republican nomination for governor. We did extend invitations for this first town hall to Abbott, to Alan West, to Don Huffines, to Chad Prather. Greg Abbott refused, and I had to mention that at the beginning of the town hall because I literally got hate mail, like from somebody who sent it to me, who accused me of cutting Abbott out of the equation. It's like, no, Abbott was literally the first invitation we sent out, and he declined. So, but we had the other 3. We had Alan West, we had Don Huffines, we had Chad Prather, and they did a phenomenal job. Now, when people ask who the TNM is supporting or who I'm supporting, I can just point them to the town hall and go, here's what you can base your selection off of, right? Here's these guys answering questions that were near and dear to our hearts. And I will tell you that it was a different set of questions than most of the candidate forums that are out there. And that's necessary, right? I mean, the TNM has a very certain set of issues. TEXIT is one of those issues, but only one of those issues. But we took questions, we aggregated questions for really 2-3 months that people were asking. We compiled them together into categories, and that's what got asked. So we talked about TEXIT. We talked about the federal pushback when, all 3 candidates have laid out border security plans. We talked about the specific pushback, and how they would handle pushback from the federal government. There was a property tax question that came in live. There were so many in there. And so the town hall, I wish it would have been longer, but the town hall was about a little over an hour long. It's like an hour and 7 minutes with the intro. But I would encourage all of you to go over there. You can find it on our YouTube channel. You can find it on our main Facebook page. And I know that they're going to get a link posted on our website. I know there's probably an article in the works about it. If there is, I'm almost sure that there is, but they'll get one embedded there. But it's still there. If you go look at the candidate, the actual article that was posted about the event, the video, the archive video is there, and go watch it. Look, we've had, I think within 48 hours, I think we were over aggregated across all platforms, like 25,000 views or more. So a lot of people are going to that, and they're making their voting decisions based on it. And my encouragement to everyone at the end of that town hall was that if there was a question that you didn't see answered during this town hall, right? Because we only had an hour, we can't, this is not a Guantanamo Bay interrogation, right? If there was a question that didn't get answered, go connect with these guys, right? Their campaigns, all three of those candidates, their campaigns have been extremely open with communicating with constituents, right? Communicating with Texas voters, answering questions. We encourage them to go to the websites, but engage with them. They're all very active. They're all out on the road. So go do it. I mean, they don't back down from questions. And you may ask a question and you may like the answer, or you may not like the answer, but at least, unlike with our existing elected officials, at least you will get an answer, right? You'll actually get an answer to your question, like it or not, but at least it's something, it's an answer. And so I would encourage everyone to do that. Excuse me. That's funny. I happened to just kind of glance down at Chad, and I saw Ann, the Rose Lady, who I know back from Southeast Texas, known her for years and years. She said she can't vote for somebody who's not wearing a tie. She's joking, right? But I literally, that was a criticism from someone that I got early on. It was after the Hannity interview, I think, many years ago. I got a piece of hate mail from somebody who said that they would never support someone who didn't know how to tie a tie. And I don't know if it was the way I tied it or what. I mean, it looked fine to me, but what people don't understand is I know how to tie all kind of tie knots, right? I mean, this kind of stuff you talk about on Coffee Talk, right? I know how to tie all kinds of things, half Windsor, double Windsor, all those. But here's the story about the why I tie a tie the way I do. I have sort of a sentimental streak, right? And so many of you have heard me talk about my dad, right? He was a Korean, he was raised in Mineral Wells. He got, him and his parents lied about his age so he could get into the Army. Well, it's technically the Air Force. He got in the Air Force and went, to during the Korean conflict, right? So during the Korean War. So he's a Korean War vet. But my dad was so kind of Mineral Wells of those days, right? He was born in 1932. He had never tied a tie before he joined the military. So they had to teach him in the military how to tie a tie. And so that's how he tied his tie. To the day he died, that's how he tied his tie. And so that's how he taught me to tie a tie. And even though I learned all these other knots, I still tie it to honor my dad, right? So it's a bit sentimental. It's the reason I wear black boots all the time, right? Because there's some sentimental reason for that. And some people have even commented about that there's a black belt that I wear all the time. There's a story behind that. So there's always something. I always carry these little things that remind me, that ground me to my, whether it's my family, some past experience. And so, the guy sent me the criticism about, not being able to tie a tie. And I just kind of shrugged it off. It's like, he'll never know. I know my dad would have reacted poorly to that comment, but that was him, right? Okay, so let's get down to it, right? So the town hall was a great success. I'm sorry, I keep checking, down here. Kara's sending me questions from the chat, and I'm just making sure that I can't fold something in. And I'll get to that. There's some good ones over here already. But that being said, the town hall turned out phenomenally. A big thank you to the West, Huff, Hines, and Prather campaigns, and to those three gentlemen specifically for participating. They were great sports. You know, I don't know that anyone had done a virtual town hall with them before, and you know, so it's not something that's usually done, but we have a statewide footprint, and people wanted to participate that were not able to go to a live event. So it was a little bit different vibe. But these guys all rolled with it. You know, they got it done, and I'm just super appreciative that they took the time out to speak to the members and supporters of the Texas Nationalist movement. It was great. So, gentlemen, I know that I sent you texts afterwards, but let me publicly right now thank you for participating, and you know, when other people wouldn't, and I'll leave it at that. All right, so let's move right along. So the other big thing that has happened, and this literally happened as I was getting ready to hit the road. It's one of the reasons I was really rushed getting to Sherman is because this all broke loose. Is we got a media alert that for some reason there was a video of Ted Cruz basically answering the TEXIT question. Right, he was doing a live taping of his podcast. He got asked the TEXIT question, and he answered it, and the media freaked out because his answer was not no, because he didn't reject it. Right, now, some people are going to say, well, you know, he made it tongue-in-cheek with the Joe Rogan comment, and I'm going to play the clip here in a second. But guys, you got to understand something. The fact that he didn't reject it out of hand is the headline, right? They say don't bury the lead, right? The headline is they asked a sitting United States Senator from Texas the TEXIT question, and he didn't reject it. Now, he said, nah, I don't know that I'm ready for it yet, but if one of these things happens, I'm in. And then, of course, he made it tongue-in-cheek because the podcast is light. Made the Joe Rogan comment about Joe Rogan being president. But the fact of the matter is that he didn't say no. And it wasn't a joke. So let me do this. Let me go ahead and play this clip for you guys, and then we'll unpack it when it's all over with.
If Texas were to secede, or any other state for that matter, what would do you think would be the best course of action, or how do you think the federal government would respond?
I think I know which side he's on. I don't know.
So look, I got to say, and it was kind of interesting. I was talking with Michael and Liz before the show, and they were asking, so is the question of Texas secession going to come up? And I said, yeah, probably. And listen, I understand the sentiment behind the question. I'm not there yet. And we actually had a debate over drinks last night after the show. Listen, I think Texas has a responsibility to the country. And I'm not ready to give up on America. I love this country. And I think without Texas, look, Texas, we're brash, we're not shy, we're sometimes larger than life, but Texas is right now an amazing force keeping America from going off the cliff, keeping America grounded on the values that built this country, on the values of freedom. I think we have a responsibility. Now, listen, if the Democrats end the filibuster, if they fundamentally destroy the country, if they pack the Supreme Court, if they make D.C. a state, if they federalize elections and massively expand voter fraud, there may come a point where it's hopeless. We're not there yet. And if there comes a point where it's hopeless, then I think we take NASA, we take the military, we take the oil.
Take me, please take me. I don't want to be trapped.
What about Joe Rogan? Are you going to take him?
Joe Rogan, he might be the president of Texas.
Okay. So yeah, it was, it was lighthearted at the end, but what's interesting about it, and I'll tell you, when we saw the clip, we posted the clip a little over 3 weeks ago, right? I think it's 2.5 or 3 weeks ago. We posted it to our YouTube channel when we found it. And thanks to our friends over there at Carrie's Unsafe Space for turning us onto it, because they did a book club online review of my book, TEXIT. And one of the participants of that book club mentioned this, and it had just happened. So we went, grabbed it, and we're kind of floored about it. But here were the takeaways, okay? And I think this is important for everyone to understand. Number one is the fact that the young man took the opportunity to ask the question in a public forum to an elected official, and it's something we should all be doing, right? And I mean, it's been happening to every one of the gubernatorial candidates, and probably one of the reasons that these elected officials won't do a lot of Q&A without filtering. But we have to all understand that the more we can pin these folks down on this question, at a very minimum, whether or not they believe we should be able to vote on it, right? Whether they support it or not, that's sort of secondary to the issue of whether or not they believe that Texans should be able to vote on it, right? That's an Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution thing about whether or not we have the right. We absolutely have the right under Article 1, Section 2, and this should have been put to the people of Texas a long time ago, right? But the fact is that the young man did what we all need to be doing, is in these town halls, these opportunities for questions and answers where they have to publicly comment, the question should be asked. Number one, do you believe that the people of Texas should be able to vote on TEXIT? And number two, if so, and it's put to the people of Texas, will you respect the outcome of that vote? That's literally the only two questions we need answered publicly from these elected officials. And so, take every opportunity. So that was number one takeaway. Okay. Number two takeaway was, notice that when he asked the question, what the crowd did, right? They weren't quiet. Nobody booed. What did they do? The crowd cheered. And they didn't cheer just a little bit. It wasn't a golf clap. The people that were there cheered. And you know what? Those were all college age kids, right? People talk about, where's the young generation? You just heard them in that video cheering for the TEXIT question, right? Before they had ever heard Ted Cruz's answer, just the fact that it came up and the way the question was worded, they were in, right? They're supportive of it. Now, they gave Ted the clap when he said, and I don't mean that in that sense, but they clapped for him. That somebody's going to cut that out, I'm sure. But they clapped for him when he said, look, I don't want to give up on America. I'm not there yet. Okay, look, I can't really understand it, right? I can respect it because so many of these people, so many things of these triggers are there. So everybody has their pain point. And the majority of Texans are past that pain point, right? They're ready. If it goes to the polls tomorrow, it doesn't win by a little, it wins by a lot, right? So I don't understand it, but if that's his position and he's not there yet, I can respect that. But at a minimum, what he's telling us is that if it were to come to a vote today, he would vote no. Okay. He's not there yet. But what he did say is that if this continues to fundamentally transform, he listed out some very specific criteria, then he's all in. But I would suggest, and here I'll do this for our social media guy, John. I will ask this question to Ted Cruz directly. And it's a question that he needs to answer. And it's simply this. If those are your trigger points, right? What about all of the other transgressions that the federal government have made, right? What about all of those previous transgressions that there is no rolling back? And really, the fundamental question is this, Senator Cruz, is knowing what you know about the federal government. If Texas was already a free, independent, self-governing nation state, would you cast a vote to join the union today? And if you wouldn't vote to join, then why in the world would you ever vote to stay? So there it is. That's the question. And that's the question that he needs to answer. Because, the takeaway here is, and really the final takeaway from that video for me is simply this. His answer was not a no, right? In the past, and I mean, think about it. For those of you who have stood up at these town hall meetings and seen this question posed to elected officials, you've seen what a no looks like, right? You know what a no is. For those that were at that town hall up there in, I think it was the Ennis, Corsicana, Waxahachie area, whatever. I think that seat that Brian Harrison ultimately won. I think the only town hall for that special election, that question was asked, the TEXIT question. And one of the candidates, I don't remember which one, flatly rejected. Absolutely not. I am not in favor of that. I'm not in favor of letting the people vote on it. I mean, it was a flat denial, a total 100% rejection of this issue that is near and dear to so many Texans. And, so you know what it looks like. And that was not it. It's like, a few cycles back when John Frullo and, oh man, who was he running against? I can't remember right now. But there's a clip about it on YouTube, right? We got clips of these elected officials being asked the TEXIT question. And a no, a no is a no. But anything short of a no is either a yes or a not yet. And what that means for us is that we have moved the needle on this issue. Because I want you to think 10, 15 years ago, you would ask this to an elected official and they would freak out, right? They would be like, no, we can't do that. They would fall back on all the tropes, right? But we've moved the needle so much that you've got Ted Cruz saying, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. You've got Chip Roy, Texas congressman, on the floor of the United States House of Representatives, loudly declaring and asking the question, whether or not Texas made a mistake by joining the union. I mean, that's huge. And I know that may escape some of you guys that don't have some of the history and the context, but understand when you step back and you look at the history of this issue, these things move the needle. The fact that you've got all three of Abbott's major challengers for the GOP nomination that have commented on it, have said at a very minimum they support the right of the people to vote on it. All three have signed the petition to put it on the primary ballot. That's huge. And the fact that you've got candidates that are running right now that have already declared for state senate, for state rep, for lieutenant governor. Hang on, let me do this. For lieutenant governor that are explicitly in favor of giving Texans a vote on the issue and are loudly declaring that not only would they support giving Texans a vote on it, but they themselves would vote yes because they understand the benefits of Texas being a self-governing independent nation and the harms that we face if we stay under this umbrella of the federal government. So it's huge. This is a big, big deal. You are seeing what the political establishment is denying, which is a popular uprising, a movement to make Texas free, independent, sovereign. And I'm going to tell you, as someone who had to do extensive study before the foundation of the TNM, looking at independence movements around the world, this is the moment that we have been waiting for. This is it. We're all of this work that we have done all of these years has set us up for such a time as this. And the momentum is here. And I have seen this moment in country after country after country, in independence movement after independence movement after independence movement. This is a sign that we are on a trajectory toward an inevitable conclusion that ends in Texas becoming a free, independent, self-governing, sovereign nation. To live up to our promise of Article 1, Section 1, and to fulfill that guarantee to the people in Article 1, Section 2 that we are the ones who get to choose how we're governed. Not 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., not a bunch of malcontents in the House of Reprehensibles, not a political establishment here in Texas that really is just looking at this like a farm club and looking to an upgrade to federal office, right? Or, getting their pockets padded by special interests. This is a movement of the people, and our time is here. So we just have to capitalize on it. We can't stop now. We cannot slow down. We have got to seize this moment. And again, I muse as to why in the world the media picked this up, almost a month after it actually happened. So something's up. There's a reason somewhere. I don't know where that is, but I'm glad they're doing it. And I got to tell you this too: in the media coverage, in all the media coverage, whether it was CBS News, USA Today, all these media outlets have picked up on this and run with it. They've name checked the TNM, and I will tell you, oddly enough, which is very rare for these media outlets, none of them backhanded us or slurred us or slammed us. They understand, I think, to a certain degree, when a sitting U.S. senator says it, and all of these things that are happening, and there is a movement behind it that is pushing this conversation, they understand that something's getting ready to happen. And of course, they probably don't care for it too much, but ultimately, it's not up to them, right? This is not a Mother May I situation. This is all about the people of Texas. All right. So there was the final thing. So let me do this while I've got some time. Let me get to some questions. And hey, thank you all for chatting. Right, all of you that are participating in the YouTube chat, that are commenting, that are bantering back and forth, and of course those of you chatting on Facebook as well. I always appreciate that. This is a lot better than speaking into the ether. Right, this is our time to have coffee. Okay, so here we go. Here's a question from Terry Case. She says, I and several other veterans have discussed TEXIT at length, but I've been unable to find any information on how TEXIT would handle veterans benefits after the exit. Okay. So I'm going to tell you that is actually answered very specifically if you go to texitnow.org, right? Or if you're on our website, you go to the TEXIT, you go to the TEXIT link, it will take you there. And there is a very specific, very detailed article about veterans benefits, right? And it's covered there. And those links are too long because there's like 100 questions answered over there. But it's there, right alongside, I think, the Social Security question, any of those questions about federal pension benefits, it's definitely answered there. So I would direct your attention over there, and it's detailed policy, way too detailed for me to get into here, but there is a detailed answer that I believe will cover everything that you're asking about there. So thanks for that question, Terry. Chatters are saying they cannot find the super chat button to use it. I do not know anything about that, but we'll look into it. Okay, so Joe on YouTube says she enjoyed watching the town hall with 3 governor's candidates, and thank you for participating, right? Nobody likes to talk into the ether, and so thank you for watching. She'd like to know if you have talked with any of them about the problem with the defunded police in Austin, Texas. No, that actually, it is a great question. It did not come up. We had a very limited amount of time. But I'm pretty sure all 3 of those gentlemen have a decidedly strong opinion on the defunding of the police in Austin. It is a really sore subject for people, and especially for those people that are or will be working in Austin, as it's the capital. There was chatter at the end of the last session or the session before about potentially taking over policing in Austin by the state because it is the capital. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But, just like so many things that would be, I think would be something that the citizens would want, the people would want. We see that the legislature, the governor, lieutenant governor, they get real kind of weak-kneed when it comes to taking strong, decisive action. So I don't foresee that that's going to shake down anytime soon, but I would suggest reaching out to their campaigns and talking to them. Okay, Pat on Facebook. Pat says, "What can the lieutenant governor position? Change the direction of the state?" It's unusually worded, but let me see if I can tackle the question as I understand it. The lieutenant governor, as the president of the Senate, has a tremendous responsibility and really directs so much of the policy here in Texas. Now, granted, the Speaker of the House, obviously, we got problems in the House, and that needs to be cleared up. But the Senate, the president of the Senate, the lieutenant governor, has a tremendous responsibility of directing policy. The bottom line is, and actually found Dan Patrick talking about this in one of his campaign videos when he ran against David Dewhurst. The lieutenant governor position is the most powerful position in Texas politics, constitutionally speaking. But what we have seen time and time again is an abrogation of that responsibility, right? It's become a hype man for the governor. So a good example for this, and this is something that we all really need to consider, when you go look back at the press conferences related to the COVID lockdowns and shutting down businesses and declaring some people essential and some people non-essential and devastating the economy. Abbott didn't do those press conferences alone. He was flanked on each side, one side by Dan Patrick and one side by Dennis Bonnet at the time. And Dennis Bonnet is now gone. But Dan Patrick sat there while the power of the legislature was usurped, while the governor issued executive order after executive order, issued emergency declaration after emergency declaration, and the lieutenant governor didn't utter a peep. He just sat there, typically with a mask over his mouth, so he wouldn't be forced to say anything. But he said nothing while the power of the legislature was usurped, the representatives of the people. It's a little too late to come out now and say, well, maybe we didn't go the right direction or whatever. But during that time when people were suffering, and we're getting bad policy guidance from Washington, D.C. Dr. Fauci was effectively running the country and sending edicts down, and the states were falling in lockstep. Governors like Governor Abbott, it should have been, and frankly, was the duty and responsibility of the lieutenant governor to speak up for the rights of the people of Texas and demand a special session to vet all of this policy that was going on, to either overturn the emergency order or to basically call the legislature into session. And not once did Dan Patrick call on the governor to call a special session to get the full voice of the representatives of the people engaged in this. And it was a terrible thing, but that was an abrogation of responsibility, something the lieutenant governor should have done. We don't have rule by decree here in Texas. At least we shouldn't have. We're not an autocracy. We are a constitutional republic. And it even talks about the preservation of a Republican form of government in Article 1, Section 2, right? So, the fact that it was so freely given, this free pass to the governor during that time, tells you that we don't have a three-branch government. We have the governor and we have people that work for the governor, even though they're elected to represent the people in their particular capacity. And in that capacity, the lieutenant governor should have been strong enough to speak up, stand up, and at least cry foul when the power of the legislature was usurped. So, but if you want to talk about changing the direction of the state, it's a policy thing, right? So many, and again, I have video of Dan Patrick back again when he's talking about Dewhurst. He essentially says that if the lieutenant governor wants legislation passed, it gets passed. So what that means is if it doesn't get passed, then the lieutenant governor doesn't want to get it passed. So, when you talk about things like the, property tax relief that we keep being promised and being handed scraps, there have been plans and legislation on the table that would phase out property tax for years and years and years, right? All solid plans, right? I think that the current plan by the TPPF is really one of the best plans that I've seen, but there have been plans on the table, bills actually submitted, legislation floating around that would have effectively abolished the property tax. But so that means that we had an opportunity to do that for years and years and years and stop kicking people out of their homes for their inability to pay skyrocketing property taxes, but it didn't get done. And by Dan Patrick's own words, it didn't get done because he didn't want to get it done. we go back and we see, the lieutenant governor promising time and time again to secure the border. Okay, well, you ended allegedly sanctuary cities. Okay, well, that's great. But how did that affect the border? That's helping, but that's not securing the border, right? When there have been opportunities, I mean, we had an entire slate of candidates run in 2012 talking about the border, talking about fully militarizing the Texas State Guard and putting them belly up to the river and turning back illegal immigrants, like literally just don't even let them step foot on the soil. And, putting them down there fully militarized. And if the cartels shoot, they shoot, we shoot back. I mean, it's an act of war, right? They're a narco criminal terrorist gang. So you have to treat it as such. But those things were floating around. And so the fact that the border is worse now than it was then, and there were opportunities and plans to take very strong, decisive action on that issue, tells you all you need to know. Because under Dan Patrick's own criteria, it didn't get done because he did not want to get it done. And it really boils down to this, whether it's the lieutenant governor position or so many of these, they have no vested interest in really fixing these issues. Their vested interest is to do enough just to not get fired, right? It's like that line from the movie Office Space, where Peter Gibbons gets called in to talk to the consultants, the two Bobs, and he describes his day. I think that we've actually got a clip of that, I think on our Instagram channel or something. But he talks about, that he just comes into work to basically do enough to not get fired. And that's what they do. And so they can always fundraise and whip up the base because there is always a problem, because they never fix it all the way. They do a little, just enough to not get fired. And look, it's time. Things are too critical, right? The onslaught from the federal government, the border issue, the property tax. I mean, every issue that we're talking about has reached a critical stage where half measures are no longer going to get the job done, right? Half measures are no longer going to stop people from getting kicked out of their homes, right? Half measures are not going to get the border secured and get those border counties back to where they're supposed to be and get DPS back in the areas where they're supposed to be. Half measures are not going to make parents the primary stakeholder in their children's education, right? And kick CRT out and all those other things. Half measures are not going to stop this onslaught from the federal government and the rubber stamp of the federal courts. It's just not going to get done. So, to your question, what can the lieutenant governor position change, and how it changes the direction of the state when you have, and it's not just the lieutenant governor, it's governor, lieutenant governor, your state representatives, your state senators. It's why you have to be very strong and not take the rhetoric, because there is a lot of it. These guys are excellent campaigners. And I had a state rep tell me one time, he says, hey, there's campaigning and there's governing, and the two are never the same. Well, we have to end that mentality, and we have to end it by holding these guys accountable. And I'll tell you, I think part of the reason that we're seeing so many of these guys retire from the legislature is they understand this election cycle is going to be an accountability cycle. It is going to be a bloodbath for the political establishment, because the people are no longer going to accept half measures, and they're not believing the rhetoric anymore. They can't go out and sell property tax relief when people are still getting kicked out of their homes. And, the most they got was a little over $200 in the first year of property tax relief. People aren't buying it. They're not buying the rhetoric that they've secured the border, when we know that it's worse now than it's ever been. And they're no longer going to accept the strategy of the leadership in Texas, pushing back against the federal government, when that strategy is tweet, sue, lose, and repeat, right? Not going to take it anymore. Okay. And let's see here. Oh man, I'm running low on time. Okay. Let's see here. Adam. Oh, I like that. Adamant. It is not the Adamant, right? I know this. But this is on YouTube. Adam wants to know, how do we protect ourselves after TEXIT? How do we protect Texas from being part of splintering or balkanization of the U.S.? Look, how we protect Texas is simply it. And I actually cover it in my book. TEXIT, why and how Texas will leave the Union. There's a whole section about the military on the TEXIT section of the website. If you go to texitnow.org, we talk about that. But, the first thing we do is we start by strengthening our existing 3-branch military, right? We have the Texas Military Department is a 3-branch military. That's Army National Guard, Air National Guard, and the Texas State Guard. And we focus primarily on the Texas State Guard, where the state government allocated $2 billion over the biennium to basically increase DPS patrols. They could have thrown $2 billion at the Texas State Guard for full militarization and mobilization and expanding enlistment. And we'd have had a full-blown, legit start for a military that we could deploy for the border or for whatever. But they didn't. They allocated $2 billion for increased patrols, traffic stops 40 miles inland from the border. So, it's where we start. But how do we protect ourselves? Well, that's how we do it. We do it by building on the military that we already have. And we take it from there. And in the book and on the website, I talk about there's actual projections in there based off of GDP, right? So if we didn't increase GDP not one single dime, there's two models that we talk about in the numbers. One is the 2%. 2% of GDP for defense spending, which is the NATO minimums, right? It was the NATO agreed to minimums. Not saying that we're going to be a member of NATO, but it sets a good example, right? Each country in NATO agreed to allocate 2% of their GDP to national defense, aka to stop the U.S. from having to cover their butts all the time, but at a minimum allocate 2%. So there's a 2% figure, and then there's the 4% global average figures that are in there, and you'll see. I mean, it gives us a budget. It gives us one of the most well-funded militaries in the world. So there's definitely that. But I would encourage you to either read the book or go to the TEXIT section of the website, and you can dig off into that a little bit more. And speaking of military, let me take this opportunity before I take this final question here from John. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, and as I mentioned a moment ago, my father is a veteran. He fought in the Korean War, and he did his part. I come from a long line of military. My uncle was a Marine on Saipan. He was almost killed by Japanese mortar fire. Amazing. My other uncle was a shipboard during the Korean War. I've got a cousin who did a 22-year hitch in the Navy, and my son is currently serving in the United States Army. And so I would like to just say thank you to all of you veterans out there, those who have served, those who are still serving, even though I know those who are still serving covered by Armed Forces Day, but to all of our veterans, thank you. I think it is no mistake that 40% of the declared supporters in the TNM are prior service military. And, those folks, when they make that jump and understand Texas independence, then I think it should send a signal to the rest of Texas that if the veterans see the benefit of TEXIT to protect those things which they served to protect and defend, then I think it behooves all of us to do the same. So to you, all of you veterans out there, I'd like to wish you a very peaceful and happy Veterans Day. So thank you. So let me get to a final question here, and because I'm running out of time. This is John. John wants to know if the TNM will be endorsing candidates for the primary. Well, this is a good opportunity for me. Man, I made the camera blurry. That thing is crazy. There we go. This is a good opportunity for me to talk about this. Let me find it on here. There it is. Okay, so those of you may or may not know that back at the very beginning of the legislative session, we made a very vocal promise to all those legislators and told them that any of them that did not sign on to House Bill 1359, Kyle Biedermann's Texas Independence Referendum Act, that we were going to go out and specifically find candidates that were pro-Texas and pro-Texit to go run against them. And we immediately launched a campaign to start recruiting those candidates. And sure enough, It has been tremendously successful. So I'm encouraging all of you to, if you still, because the filing window allegedly opens next week, and then there's a month for filing. So I'm going to encourage you now, if you have been on the fence, right? If you have not thought about running for office, but you feel like you have not been represented by your state representative or state senator, we need you to go to this link on the website right now, tnm.me/run for office, right? And help us by becoming a part of our Take Texas Back campaign, right? It's one of the reasons that kind of pushed me over to run for lieutenant governor. Is I am one of those people who believes you never ask people to do something you're not willing to do yourself. And granted, I have run for office twice before in my life. Once when I was 18 years old, I ran for mayor of my hometown. And man, I look back at that picture the other day, and I wouldn't have voted for me either. I was young. But that being said, I also ran in 2012 as a state representative as part of a slate of candidates that were pro-liberty, right? And the TNM contributed to that effort of 35 candidates. And so here we are now with our Take Texas Back campaign, and we're recruiting people to run up and down the ballot all across the state. Our goal is to provide a challenger for every state representative and state senator who worked to defy us a vote on Texas independence in this last legislative session. But the issues go so much deeper than that. We talk about TEXIT, but there are so many other issues. And really what it boils down to is having elected officials that represent us, that represent our concerns, that represent where we want Texas to go. And frankly, folks, we don't have that right now. So what we have been doing is we have been talking to people just like you and asking them to step forward and become a part of our Take Texas Back campaign. The last I heard, we were, I think, a little over 57 candidates that were going to run on the slate. And we're not asking you to run and then shoving you out there on your own and say, go get them, Tiger, or, go work with the political establishment. What we're saying is we have created something that has not been done in Texas. We have created and are working out a total framework for our people that want to run for office. So you don't have to focus on the things like your tech and your website and things like that. You can get out there and focus on the things that really matter, which is connecting with the people of Texas. And, there are a lot of phenomenal benefits to being part of the Take Texas Back campaign. So that being said, to John's question about whether we will be endorsing in the primary, the only candidates that the TNM will be working with or backing in this election cycle, in this primary cycle, are people that are part of our Take Texas Back slate, period. Okay. Now, there will be other candidates out there that are not part of the slate that may be members, but they didn't, they are taking a different path, and that's fine. We'll work with affiliated candidates. We'll do those things, but 100% TNM members that are part of the Take Texas Back campaign will be getting our full support as best as we can give it. So it's going to be a phenomenal thing. I told someone the other day that what we are seeing here is what I told you tonight. It's popular uprising. This will go down, I believe, in history as the most challenged primary election in Texas history. I think it will. I think it will be the most challenged primary. And we thought the cycle 10 years ago was the most challenged. But I foresee a scenario here where every single incumbent has a challenger. I think it's entirely possible. And I don't mean just some rando who is just putting their name on the ballot. I mean, this is going to force them all to run. And our candidates are not running to make a statement. They're running to win, just like me. Somebody said the other day, are you just trying to make a statement? No, I've made a statement. I'm running to win. I'm running to beat the crap out of the guy that I'm running against and give the people their voice back in Austin. And that's what all of our candidates want. Right. And so if you're in a district and there's not a Take Texas Back candidate there, and you don't feel like you've been adequately represented, then it's time to throw your hat in the ring. Right. It's time to step up in this cycle, because I'm asking other people to do it. I'm doing it. We can all campaign together, but this is a movement. Never forget, this is not the Texas Nationalist Group or the Texas Nationalist Organization. This is the Texas Nationalist Movement. We move, right? And this is part of that moving. We're advancing always the issue of a free, sovereign, self-governing, independent Texas. So that being said, look, it's coming. You know, we'll start that process of rolling out the slate. My understanding is that we will be having a large in-person candidate event where we bring out all the candidates, and it's going to be a hi-ho Dario, man. It's going to be phenomenal. So just be looking for it. It won't be a secret. We do very little that's a secret. When things happen, we tell you. So you won't have to hunt for the information. All right. That being said, I'm a little bit over time, which is fine. I'm not worried about that. I love visiting with you guys. This is what we do. It's coffee talk, right? There we go. Final sip of coffee for tonight. So look, again, I encourage you to go out there, go to the website, tnm.me, plug into an event, become a local leader, help us with petitions, become a petition circulator if you haven't done already. Help go sign the petition. I mean, there's so many ways to get involved that can make an actual difference. And that's really what sets the TNM apart. We give people all kinds of avenues where they can participate and make a difference, whether it's becoming a volunteer, starting a local group, making a donation, whatever that is, that option is always there. And we never give people busy work that amounts to nothing. We always want everyone to be moving the ball forward on Texas independence. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I did not invite all of you to join the Texas Nationalist Movement at tnm.me/join. And then, of course, I'm going to encourage you to, boom, there you go. Go to my website, danielomiller.com. Let me know you're standing with me. Connect with me. We'll talk later. All right. That being said, it's time to wrap this bad boy up. Thank you for joining me for another weekly coffee talk. I enjoyed the coffee. I enjoyed the visit. Glad we could talk about this. And thank you so much for the questions and the banter and chat. And with that, folks, I'm going to wrap up as I do with every live stream. I'm going to remind you the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. That time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.
Well, the people in power, whether red or blue, they could not care less about Texas, me and you. They created this give me country that don't value hard work. For a Texan to survive, all we need are some seeds and dirt. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. We believe in family and we value our community. Gladly lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. And we don't believe that government should provide for all of society's needs. No, it's the pride of a Texan to give to others voluntarily. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. They like our tax dollars and they love our natural resources. They don't want to see us driving trucks, they'd rather see us riding horses. And now they want to ban our guns. You window, especially the ones that look scary. But may I remind you of the Gonzales Cannon and the Alamo heroes we buried. Texas in her eyes, don't you hear your call? We got to save our country before it's long gone. Texas in her eyes, don't you hear your call? We got to save our country before it's long gone. This last verse is straight from the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 and 2. Look it up. Texas is an independent state, yet presently we suffer. We no longer possess the right to locally self-govern. And now it's time as a people in which all political power is inherent. And in such manner we find expedient, we reform or abolish our government. I said, Texas in her eyes, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country before